Pretty good, how are you? No, this second page? And this one?
I said it was funny because we do work for Oviedo also, and you all are having 100-year this weekend, and they're having their 100-year this weekend. Yeah, because they're having their party like this weekend. Like every one of you.
All righty, thank you.
There was a big push in 1925.
Whoop.
All right, I still have some things here. I'll try to. It'll be awkward or sneaky in there, but anyway, so. I know most of the numbers off the top of my head, but sometimes I don't see as well distance. Thank you.
Well, do it in your speak time, they talk. Yeah, that's all. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you take as much time as you want.
Yeah, I can sing you with it too. Yeah. You didn't tell me
So
how to
I'll push it down until it's your time.
You didn't tell me how to perform. So I don't have to, you guys will switch it?
Yeah, just be point. Yes.
Gotcha.
Okay. And if you're not just going,
Yeah. Well, I guess it depends on what time it is too.
you have everything done, you got 1 hour.
So it depends on how many questions I want to answer if I take longer time.
There. All right. Guess everybody's here. Let's go and get started. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. All righty, if you would, roll call, please.
Councilmember Morganelli,
Here.
Councilmember Hartle,
Here.
Vice Mayor Womack,
Here.
and Mayor Wanku.
Here. How about a prayer for Alan? You okay with it? Thank you. I'm sorry?
Come on up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you. I have a prayer person here, thanks.
And she will pray for you too.
I don't want to fight over it. Do I announce who I am again? Okay, thank you. Pastor Sherry Young, 17015 Porter Avenue, Church at Montverde. Let's pray. Gracious Lord, we thank you for this day that you have given us, this beautiful evening, Lord. And we ask for your wisdom and discernment as the town issues are discussed, Lord. We will ask you for some rain as well. Your flowers, your trees, your grass, Lord, and the crops need some water. And we don't want to flood like Noah, but we would like some rain, Lord. Bless each and every person here. In Jesus' name and by the power of the Holy Spirit we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. All right, let's move on. This is our workshop, and it's going to be pretty interesting subjects. Well, okay. Let's move on to, this young lady's going to show us, right? Everything. Why don't we go ahead and get it started?
Yeah. So Mayor and Council, this is Tara Hollis from Roldan Financial, our financial consultant that was contracted to do the impact fee studies. And that does pull up.
Just gonna put that there in case there's any other questions.
You can make it higher if you want. Yeah.
But I did say I'm not gonna sing any of this. I don't know if I'm gonna perform anything, but I will definitely be ready to talk. All right, again, my name is Tara Hollis. I'm a principal consultant with Wildan Financial Services. We're here in the Orlando, so pretty close by. And I've been doing this kind of work personally for 25 plus years with both water, sewer, utility systems, as well as some of the impact fees and other financial consulting for public utilities and public municipalities. So, as mentioned, as part of doing the impact fee analysis, there are some new phase-in provisions. So that's part of why we're having this hearing, is we have to do a demonstrated need study if we're looking at doing something different than those phase-in provisions by statute. But I wanted to go ahead and give you a little background again on Wildan, just so that you remember us. Again, like I mentioned, we do everything from cost allocation plans, development impact fees. You'll hear me talk about development impact fees. We kind of look at non-utility and then utility system impact fees. So we use them interchangeably, although we typically do the development, meaning non-utility, and then regular impact, when we say water, sewer, utility impact fees.
Let me interrupt
So we'll
you
use
for a
that,
minute.
sure.
I wanted to tell everybody, if you have questions, go ahead and write them down, and we'll get them at the end of her presentation.
Okay.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No problem. Yeah, whatever's easy, whatever way is best if you want to ask them, but I'm good
Yeah,
at
we'll
the
do
end.
it at the end.
Okay. I know we have a short amount of time here, so but like I mentioned, impact fees, utility rates and charges. I do a lot of assessment programs, so we do assessment programs for, street lighting, fire. I'm doing undergrounding and actually a navigation maintenance one for boats and down in Longboat Key. So we do a lot of those different things, impact analysis, bond compliance. We are a lot of times the financial consultant when we're doing and you're trying to go out and borrow money, we'll do the feasibility consultant and write the report, especially for like water, wastewater, or utility systems, enterprise funds, to make sure that you'll be able to, we look at it and look at the financials to make sure that it looks like you'd be able to repay the debt. Relevant experience when looking at impact fees, and sorry, next slide. Like you said, we've actually worked for you before on sewer, and Wildan was actually a consultant on some other expert witness issues that you had and matters that you had previously. So we've worked with you now for the past few years. In the past 5 years, we have completed throughout the U.S. over 125 of the development impact fees. Those are here in Florida, South Carolina. We do a lot in Colorado with the development impact fees, California, Arizona. So this is kind of representing the development impact fees that we do. We have a diverse staff. As part of our impact fee staff, we have a former bond attorney that's out in California. We have some staff in Colorado that does this work also that have been doing it for about 20 plus years. Several of us sit on, for AWWA, we sit on a committee for developing a manual practice for impact fees, for water and sewer impact fees. So like I said, we've been doing this 25 plus years. Water and sewer, just more so in the southeast, we've done recently, last 5 years, at least 75 water and sewer impact fee or system development charge studies. And these just quickly list of some of the clients we provided services to. The next two slides are that. This first one is for non-utility impact fees. The second page is for utility system impact fees. So that's kind of the history and kind of who Wildan is, just so you know why we're standing here. We've done this a lot, and we have a lot of experience in developing impact fees. So the main reason we're here tonight is as part of adopting and updating your impact fees, because of the magnitude of the impact fees, we're having to do a demonstrated need study. And that's basically, if you look at the next slide, House Bill 337. So back in 2021, the state passed an update to the Florida Impact Fee Act that basically imposed limitations on impact fee increases exceeding 25%. If it's 25%, they must be phased in over 2 years. If they exceed 50%, they must be phased in over 4 years in equal increments. And then it's really up to 50%, so you would do 12.5% a year. And then over that, you can't do anything over 50% unless you meet certain requirements, which that's why we're here tonight. And the other thing is, in 2021, they limited you so you could only do a new study and update them. It had to be at least 4 years before you could update them again. But they did include a provision in that and in the statute that fees can be increased beyond the phase-in limitations if certain criteria are met. So the things that need to be met is a demonstrated need study must have been conducted within 12 months of the adoption of new fees and must justify any increases exceeding the limitations. So we have prepared a separate needs study that goes through. This is going to summarize our findings in that study. You have to demonstrate that they must expressly demonstrate extraordinary circumstances, so why you would need this additional amount, necessitating the need to exceed the phase-in limitations. So we're looking at exceeding the phase-in limitations and also the timing of those limitations. You must hold no fewer than 2 publicly noticed workshops. So we're here for this tonight. We'll be back again April 29th for the second workshop, which would discuss similar information. And they must be approved. So in order to approve these and to exceed these limitations, you would need to have a 2/3 majority vote of council. So let's talk about your extraordinary circumstances. One, obviously, is you have and are continuing to have significant growth. The other is going to be, you've seen inflation, but capital costs, costs of projects have been increasing even faster than inflation. Costs of all building materials have continued to rise. For your water plant, those costs have increased significantly over the last several years. So those are the 2 big things, which ultimately, if you kept your impact fees where they were or at the 50% or less, is ultimately going to lead to a revenue deficit coming from that to pay for your projects. So the first extraordinary circumstance is significant population growth. We look at you and compare you. The growth rate of Montverde has exceeded the growth rate in both the county and the state. So you're significantly higher than the state, and you are also higher than what the last 10-year growth rate has been in the county. Over the last 10 years, so this information comes from the state, from the Bureau of Economic, Business and Research, BEBR, which is out of the University of Florida. So over the last 10 years, you've gone up almost 50%. The Lake County population has increased about 40%, and then the state of Florida population between April 1st, 2014 and April 1st, 2024 has gone up about 18%. So you can see the county growing 40%, and you're growing significantly faster than the rest of the state. This is just graphically presenting that same information that was on that table. So you can see the historical population growth, and you can see you did have a little dip in growth during COVID. And some of the building slowed down too, because there was a hard time getting building, people couldn't be out and doing construction and those type of things. So there was a little dip in between 21 and 22, but other than that, you can see from 14 to 2024, your population overall percentage increase. The projected growth, again, we go back to we had discussions with county staff, or city staff, town staff, I apologize. And then we also look at both state information and other projected growth information around the state. Again, this came from Bieber, as well as discussions with both looking at what's happening locally and at the county level. And again, you're projected to grow approximately 48%, almost 49% in the next 10 years, which is significantly lower than Lake County and the state of Florida. So Lake County is projected about an 18.5% growth rate. Florida, the state, is projected about 12%. And again, you're looking at about another 48% in the next 10 years. Same thing, kind of showing this one because we don't have midpoints. It's more of a linear projection going forward between 2024 and 2034, 35. So the first is your population growth. Like I said, you can see you're continuing to grow at a faster pace. You have to make sure that you have the facilities available to provide the service to people as they move in. So we're looking at, as part of this, we're looking at updating the impact fees for administration facilities, which is these buildings, library, those type of things all come in under administration facilities. You're looking at your parks and trails and making sure that you've determined a level of service to provide for parks and trails, so making sure that you can continue to provide that level of service as you continue to have population growth. We are also looking at, like I said, the water, the transportation and streets. So that, again, you're needing to make sure that you continue, as more people come in, the population increases, that you have the streets and that you're meeting the requirements that you set forth of your level of service. For the streets, you adopted the City of Mount Dora's level of service, so that's street width, sidewalks, those types of things, and making sure that you have the facilities that comply with what you've set your level of service for transportation and streets. And then water and sewer is a little different. It's making sure that you have enough, so you have the capacity in the plant, and making sure then people basically buy in a portion of capacity of your plant. So that's making sure that you continue to have that capacity.
In water only.
Sorry, yes, we took sewer. I apologize. Water, capacity of the plant. No, so I apologize.
Bad topic.
I'm used to saying water and sewer, so I
Stone you
on
on
water. And you have been going out, and you'll see when we've actually developed the updated rate for water, anything that you're getting potentially some grants towards some of the improvements and expansion that needs to be done at the water facilities, those do get credited back out. So that doesn't go into the fee. But there is a portion that you still need to pay, and so it's making sure that you have, and everybody's paying their portion as they're purchasing that capacity at the water plant. So first, we'll go back to the development impact fees, those non-utility fees. In looking at those, we typically look at cost adjustment factors. We look at consumer price index. Another industry index that we use for non-utility fees and non-utility construction costs would be a building cost index. Engineering News Record puts out a monthly index that they use, and it's an industry index. It's an approved industry standard index that they trend what costs have increased over for building and building materials over, it goes back, I think, to 1908. They do it monthly now. They used to do it yearly, obviously, back then. So what we've looked at is your last impact fee study was adopted in September 2017. From there to April was the most recent month we had available for that indice. You can see the actual factor went from 5,873 to 8,463, which is about a 44% index, or increase, sorry. So what that means is costs from 2017 to now have increased by 44%, but your fee has not increased by 44%. So now to still continue to provide those services and that level of service, we need to look at those increases in costs.
And again, that is above what inflation has done over that same time frame. Now, the water impact fee was put in place in 2007. At that time, that was but the plant and the facilities you had in place in 2007. There are two indices that we typically look at when developing impact fees for water. These are the same indices I look at. I'm a registered valuation analyst for water and sewer utility systems. So when we're doing replacement costs, we develop a replacement cost, two indices that we use to do that, and two accepted industry indices are the construction cost index from Engineering News Record, as well as Handy Whitman. They put together, and they do this twice a year where they release their numbers, where they look at specifically, they have a water, they have a gas index, they have electric index. And what they do when they're doing that is they look at line item by line item, treatment plant, transmission, all different components of a utility plant, and what the factors had been and what the cost increases they've seen in those factors over time. So for the construction cost index, we're going to go back to July 2007. That's when you initially set your water impact fees. At that time, the construction cost index was 7,959. April again, 13,798. That's almost a 73.4% increase. Now, when you look at strictly ones for water, which is Handy Whitman index, and the most recent one that was released there is July 2024. They're probably within the next month will release the January 2025 numbers. Those have gone and increased almost 150%. So that line is specifically for treatment. So treatment costs overall have been increasing at a very fast pace. You have actually made some minor adjustments to your water impact fees. So they've gone up over the last, from 2007 to now, about 22%. So obviously you can see they're not, you've done something with them, but they're obviously not keeping up with either of these two that are showing you how much more the costs have gone up over that same time frame for utility system assets.
And council, just real quick for clarification, our impact fees as they go up within those ordinances, they increase with CPI every year. So just want to clarify why you see a difference there.
And I don't believe you did that every year since 2007. Yes. Yeah, I could trace back a certain amount, but I couldn't trace every year. So really, like we mentioned, the need, why we're looking at having and why we're looking at showing you impact fees that are significant, that are going to be a significant increase, and why you need to look at potentially phasing these in as a one-time phase in instead of over the next 4 years, is because you're going to have growth come in. You need to continue to provide their level of service. It's continued to your growth, like we said, over the next 10 years, you're looking at another potentially almost 50% growth in residents within the town limits. Construction costs are continuing to go up for both buildings, streets, parks, trails, as well as your administrative, your library, those different services that you provide to your residents. And then the water the water is also increasing at a much faster pace. I mean, we've seen treatment plants, they're just going at exorbitant rates, and we've just actually discussed some of those increases just with you previously. So if you were bound by the provisions of the Florida Impact Fee Act, you potentially would not have the funds to continue to provide for that level of service, so they would have to either come from other taxes or not be able to provide that level of service. Another thing I just wanted to point out too, with your current impact fees that were established in 2017. We'll talk about in a few minutes how impact fees are developed, but there's typically 3 ways. I'll discuss in more detail, but there's typically a kind of a buy-in method where we look at what you have existing and everybody buys into that. There's an incremental method, which is we just look at new growth, so your CIP and what new needs, and new customers buy into those new needs. And the method that's typically used is kind of a hybrid of that, where you look at both replacement costs of your existing system or your existing assets, as well as what needs are coming for growth, the incremental needs, not renewal and replacement need. And then we look at the total population and divide that among the total population. That would be at the time, so in 2035. How yours were established in 2017, where they only looked at the capital improvement plan, so the CIP, the projected CIP coming forward. So those were when they were first established for those, the transportation, the parks and trails, and the administration. So those were established based on just your CIP, not actually people buying into the whole system. So what was already there as well, because they are sharing in the benefits that are received from that existing system. So they were set lower than they would have been set had you had the full complete buy-in. So what they did is they said it, so you looked at 2017, in 10 years they looked at you having the population in 2027 and then divided that by the total population, but just the new capital improvements. So they weren't giving any credit for the existing system to go into the cost of the impact fees. So you haven't been recovering for that existing system, which made your fees significantly lower than they would have been had you done it as the hybrid approach at the time. And at that time, in 2017, you had the ability to go in and update them every year if you needed to or make adjustments. Once the new law came out in 2021, that was taken away, the ease of that was taken away. So you didn't know that at the time, and when the town established those fees, you didn't know that they would have limitations. But unfortunately, that's where we are now. So that is why we're here looking at this demonstrated needs study with you. As I mentioned in the beginning, 2 steps. We need to do a minimum of 2 notice hearings for this demonstrated need, the workshops for the extraordinary circumstances and this demonstrated need. Again, I mentioned you've already set the next one for April 29th. And then after that, we'll need to set for reading, deciding on and looking at what you're going to adopt as the impact fees. And then those are the ordinance that would have to be approved by a 2/3 majority vote of the council. So the next is where I want to tell you, so you're saying, okay, now I know what I need to do to be able to put these in, but what are the fees going to be? So now I'm here to tell you what we're looking at based on our analysis, the maximum justified that the fees could be. You can adopt a different amount, but this is the maximum that is justified based on the methodology that's used to calculate impact fees in Florida. So the first thing, just a little background. Again, this is residents versus overall parcels, but you're looking at about 2,000 residents in 2024 and about 3,200 in 2034. So we sat down with staff and went through what does that mean, how many parcels are available to develop still within the current town limits. And we're looking at you adding approximately 500 single-family dwelling units in the next 10 years. Also, we looked at some multifamily units. We did sit down not only with staff, but also others in the community to look at what other potential growth might be there for what we're looking at is commercial, institutional, and multifamily units. So we're looking at about 11 multifamily units projected within the next 10 years. Commercial, institutional, we typically apply based on 1,000 square foot. So instead of a residential home, the rate you'll see we recommend is per 1,000 square foot. So we're looking at you adding and projecting you adding another 40,000 square foot of commercial. And what we did separate here versus what was done last time is we've also made an institutional category, which is basically schools, government square footage falls in there. Obviously, you don't potentially pay an impact fee. But why we looked at that is because you have a large resident or a large school here, Montverde Academy, that has several employees as well as a lot of your square footage. And their characteristics are not always exactly the same as what other commercial customers' characteristics would be. So we wanted to make sure that we address that appropriately as we were developing these impact fees. And like I mentioned, we're looking at your existing system, but we also sat down with town staff, and you do have a capital improvement plan in place for all of these different activities. So the parks and trails, you have the streets, and you have the streets and transportation, and you have the administration building. So we went through your capital improvement plan, made sure that which part of the projects were for incremental growth versus renewal and replacement activities. So anything that's renewal and replacement, maintenance, even if it's in your capital improvement plan, that does not get added to the cost that would be recovered through an impact fee. Impact fees are only for the growth and what's necessitated based on growth. So what is a development impact fee? It's a one-time charge. It's imposed at the building permit stage, so you can't collect it before then. It's imposed on all development projects within a defined geographic area. It's within your town limits. It's not a tax or an assessment, and it is subject to Section 163, 318.01 of the Florida statutes. So again, they'll refer to that as the Florida Impact Fee Act. In the report, you'll see a whole copy of that section of the statute. I didn't put it all on the slide here because it would go several pages. So how do we set impact fees? What do we do? And this is kind of our project approach to all impact fees. We have a kickoff meeting, go through policy issues, talk to you about your level of service, identify existing development and future growth, which we've kind of gone through with you. We looked at where you were in 2024, where we're projecting you to be in 2034, 35. We determine the facility standards. We determine the costs, which is your capital improvement plan. Identify any funding and financing alternatives. So to the extent that any of this was getting funded through debt for these development impact fees, we would have to make a credit for that because debt is typically your like a general obligation bond would be coming from taxes. So you can't double collect. The plan here is to not collect any of money for these projects using debt service. So there is not a credit for that in here, but again, you would credit that out so you weren't double collecting from them because they would also be getting taxed. Any of the properties coming in would be getting and paying the millage rate each year. So we do look at that. Anything that's coming in grants and loans, which I mentioned, grants, for the water side, we're crediting that out because that's not money you're paying. That's money that somebody else is paying. So therefore, you can't collect that money from the properties. Calculate the fees, go through different things with calculating the fees, prepare the report. We've prepared a draft report for both the development impact fees, the non-utility and the utility. We're here to get any feedback or questions you have, and then we have the actual final public hearing for adoption of the new fees. Here's a little portion of the Florida Impact Fee Act. Impact fees must be proportional and reasonably connected to the need for additional capital facilities and the increased impact generated by the new development and expenditures of the funds collected and the benefit accruing to the new developments. They must be assessed based on recent and localized costs, which is why you'll see we use your capital improvement plan because that should have current costs, as well as we take your existing facilities and bring those up to what we're going to call a replacement cost new. We actually are doing replacement cost new less depreciation. So if those facilities are not brand new, we're showing 20%, 30% impairment. So that's getting taken back off, and we're looking at replacement cost new less depreciation for all of your existing assets. You could look at just replacement cost new. We're being conservative, and we're recommending a conservative approach by taking off the depreciation because the assets aren't brand new. And that's something similar that we do if we're doing evaluation of any type of system, is we look at taking that off. It must be used for acquiring, constructing, or improving capital facilities to benefit new users. So again, it can't be renewal, just renewal, replacement, or maintenance costs. And it can't be used to pay any existing debt for previously approved projects. So just a different graphic of how we did this, but you basically, existing development and facilities, we look at future growth. Those feed into looking at facility standards, the planned facility costs, and any, like I said, we look at if there's any funding or financing to make adjustments. And then we do the cost allocations and do the fee schedules. And then we look at, when we're doing our approach, an implementation strategy, prepare a final report, and have a public hearing. This goes back to how I mentioned you did and how you looked at some of the older impact fees, but these are different. We look at what facilities serve who. So existing facilities, if we're looking at just an existing facility approach, we would take existing facility costs, divide that by the existing service population. Planned facilities, if we were just looking at what was planned and coming up to accommodate new growth, we would divide those planned facilities costs by new service population. The system plan typically looks at existing and planned facilities and then divides that by the existing and the new population. What I mentioned in your last study is there was no adjustment for existing facilities, so basically it just took planned facilities and divided it by the existing and new population, which resulted in a lower fee. What we're looking at is this system plan and taking all those costs, adding them in, and then dividing by the total population at the end of our projection period, which is 2034, 2035, about 10-year time period. So I already mentioned which fees we're going to talk about. This is just real quick so you know where we got some of our data. Existing population came from the Bureau of Economic and Business Research. Existing jobs, so we look at and look at how many different jobs in each category, how many people in each category you have, and that's a U.S. Census product. We use something called On the Map. Growth projections were based on town of Montverde as well as input from existing local commercial and institutional properties. Occupant densities, so that's what we use when we're talking about transportation. There is a trip manual. The American Community Survey as well as the ITE trip manual, that's used also when you're developing, and engineers use that when they're planning roads and what type of roads they need, and it's basically about this thick, and it has all different types of properties, how many trips they take, is it an average trip, is it a morning trip, is it an afternoon trip. There's all different statistics for every different type of project, type of parcel you can imagine. But we look at that when we're developing the transportation and the streets impact fee. The existing facility inventories, that came from the town. You provided us an asset listing with installation dates, original costs, accumulated depreciation. Land value assumptions, and I don't know why that says Lake Hamilton, that's supposed to be here for Lake County. But we look at what land costs would be, what sales have been on land. So if we're looking and valuing any land within the town limits. And then for future infrastructure costs, discussions with the town as well as the CIP. So major planned facilities, for the administration facilities, you're looking at additional office space, a community building space upgrade, and then to facilitate town needs, as well as library space. Parks and trails, there's various park upgrades and improvements. There's a playground at Truscott Park that you were looking at adding in that was in your level of service plan. And then we have also some multimodal trails, because parks is going to be parks and trails. Streets is various street improvements, including sidewalk additions and upgrades to comply with your level of service standards that are adopted when you adopted the City of Mount Dora level of service standards. And for the water utility system, there's some treatment and transmission upgrades and improvements. This, and I believe you've been provided the detailed report that goes and steps through all of these, but this, just to go quickly through what we're looking at, is administration facilities. So again, we're breaking down single family, multifamily. The differential between those, we look at the population and how many residents per home for single family versus we have population broken down and again, that's from the Census Bureau, population broken down for multifamily properties and people per property, and that's how we develop the differential between those two. And then I mentioned commercial and then institutional/governmental, and how we're looking at those. You'll see that and you don't currently charge for parks and trails. The logic with parks and trails is typically we don't do that to non-residential properties. That's only paid for by residential properties, because the commercial and non-residential properties, the logic is that you're potentially already a residential customer. You're not going to be using the benefits of the park twice. So we don't charge for it twice. So you look at just charging residential properties for parks and trails. So this is showing you the fee, the recommended maximum justified fee based on our analysis of the replacement cost new, less depreciation for existing facilities, as well as the projected cost of your CIP. So this is taking into account what those fees, maximum justified fees that you could adopt for each of these individual fees. So administration facilities, $3,075 for single family, multifamily about $2,800. And then, as I mentioned, non-residential is coming per 1,000 square feet. We're looking at per square foot here, so that if you have 1,850 square foot, you'd multiply the $1.99 for commercial to get what their impact fee would be. For administration facilities, transportation would be $4.53. And then you can see the differential for institutional, for administration facilities versus transportation per square foot. And so we get a total of the three non-utility impact fees would be for single-family residential properties. The maximum justified would be $14,924. Multifamily, $12,793. And then the non-residential commercial per square foot, $6.52. And institutional, $2.17 per square foot. The maximum fees for the water utility system. How we do the water utility system is, again, existing, proposed, replacement cost, new, less depreciation for the existing system, CIP, and those costs that have been provided typically by an engineer to go into your CIP for the proposed system, proposed upgrades. Again, taking out any depreciation, any debt service, which you don't have any debt service on the existing water facilities, nor are you projected to have debt service. Also making an adjustment, so we're looking at about 20% of the water system upgrades needing to come from the town and not from grant or other funding sources. So we're making an adjustment of 80% of this new CIP coming off, so we're only including 20% of the cost of the proposed system upgrades in this fee. And you have set for single-family residential a level of service of 450 gallons per day. So for, again, single-family residential, a single-family residential home would be buying 450 gallons a day of capacity. So what we've done, as you can see here, we're coming down with first per gallon. We look at what the treatment capacity is at your plant. There's adjustments for a max day to average day factor, peaking factors, because you have to build for max day, but the 350 is an average day capacity that someone's buying. The line capacity is typically similar or the same as what your treatment capacity is, because that's all that's going to be able to go through it. So if somebody's buying 450 for that, they're buying 450 of the treatment capacity. So that would result in your current fee is, I believe, $5,550 for water. It would go up to $6,150 per water equivalent residential unit, so per house. A commercial property buys based on gallon, so they would sit down with the city and determine how many gallons of capacity they're buying, and theirs would be based on $13.69 per gallon of capacity they're buying. So theirs would be a multiple. If they're buying 450 gallons, it would be the same as a single-family residential. If they're only buying 300 gallons per day, or if they're buying 1,000 gallons per day of capacity, then that 1369 would be multiplied by that capacity that they would be reserving in the plant. Just again, with the Florida Impact Fee Act, there is an implementation procedure. This is not just even the phase-in, but once you've determined and you've passed the ordinance of what fees you are going to adopt as a town, they cannot be put in place any sooner than 90 days if they're going up. If they're going down, you can obviously, they typically don't go down, you can do it immediately. But if they're going up, you have to give notice and 90 days notice before the rate that you've adopted can actually start being charged. You do have to keep track of how you're spending your impact fees, so that's another thing that the town would have to continue to do. You cannot collect the fees before you issue, no sooner than issuing the building permit. You can collect it after, but you can't collect it before. And you have to do, basically you have to provide to the state an audit, a statement each year from your finance director, et cetera, of what was spent, and that you're in compliance with the statute. And now we're to the question portion. And then at the very end, I just have to give you a disclaimer because we are also municipal advisors as well, Dan, and we are not performing municipal advisory services to you currently as part of this project. Which means I'm not telling you how to borrow money, what an interest rate would be, but it's as part of our municipal advisory certificate, we have to let you know that we are not acting as a municipal advisor for financial purposes as part of this project.
All righty, so does anybody have any questions? Go ahead.
All right, hopefully everyone's awake after that. So I guess the first question I have is you mentioned 2/3 vote. This is more for Anita. So how does that work since there's 4 of us? Can you guys all hear me?
It would require 3 of the 4 of you.
I think it's 4.
It
Under the
would
statute.
require 3, right?
If you had 5 council members seated, then we would need a 4 of the 5.
So it
But
just
with
says by
only 4 seated,
by majority and not necessarily by how many councils are seated?
well, we have a financial person here, so I did the math at 66 and 2/3
For the,
times 4, since we have 4 seated,
right,
and it ends up being 2 point something, so we would roll to 3.
yes, yes. Because
that's
the
how I got
minimum
that.
is 2/3. So if, like you said, if you have 4, you're gonna have 3, which is really 75%, but the minimum has to be 2/3.
It's
So you can't do a
2/3,
portion of a
But it's
vote.
2/3 off 5. And you still, the statute
So if it's
says
2/3
by
on 5, then that would be,
Then it would be 4 people.
Correct.
Right,
Yeah.
it's
That's
still
what the
4.
statute says, though. I'm just clarifying that. I mean,
right.
Yeah.
from what I.
Yes, because
from what
3
I-
out of 5 would only be 60%.
Yeah.
Right.
So you would not have the 2/3 vote.
Anyway, so all 4 of us are going to.
We're not going to do questions in workshop. We're not doing questions in the workshop. Go ahead.
So, all right, so then the other question I have is, with this being such a large increase, can a developer challenge this if we go down this road and approve it? That's just a concern of mine, that it's such a large increase. And
Right.
that if we have developers that are out there right now, so I'm just concerned.
Yes. They can all, I mean,
They can always challenge, but we are following the process. We feel confident in the analysis that your consultant has performed. And so they could challenge, I guess, was due process provided? Did we follow the statute? Are the fees, can they be upheld by the court that they are reasonably calculated based on sound financial principles? And I think we could say yes to all of that. So certainly they could try and challenge it, but I think we're in good,
Okay.
we have good standing.
Okay. One, I guess, question I think here on the development, keep in mind, these are my notes from the other day. The development impact fee study, and I don't think we saw them, but the capital cost per unit included totals for parks, transportation, and admin buildings, it doesn't show materials, like consultant fees, legal permitting, or staff. Just for me, the concern would be that legal issue with transparency for that. So that was something, I don't know if it's something that we could add to the study before
Okay.
the second reading. I don't think it's something.
I didn't follow that.
All right. And I apologize, I don't remember what page, I didn't write my page down here, but in the development impact fee study, there's a capital cost section. And again, I apologize, I don't know the page, I don't have that in front of me here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. I normally write the page down and just got away from me on this one. So we're not showing like a breakdown as far as like soft costs go.
Sure.
Maybe that'll help. The term soft cost, I don't know if that'll help. I didn't want to.
I can show what typically is used. So what we, for the existing system, again, we trended those forward using those cost indices. So engineering news record, Handy Whitman, CPI, certain things don't go up by Handy Whitman or ENR, so they increase by consumer price index. Normally then we have, because the current cost number that you have on your books should already include all those things. They're including the labor, they're including, any of the soft costs you had, so we're not adding those in on top of that, but I can go through an explanation of
lumping them
typically
together.
what soft costs are.
My only fear would be being challenged. That's the reason I'm asking the question. That's the only
Yes.
reason I'm asking that question, because I've done math for upcoming developments and things, and it's considerable.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that
Yes,
we.
and that's the same with the proposed, where the CIP is our understanding that already included all the soft costs, but we can put a description in there what typical soft costs would be, and that our assumption is those are already included in these numbers, so therefore we're not adding them in addition, because they were already in the base numbers.
Thank
But
you.
we can definitely add that into so in case there's any questions that come up, we
Thank
can.
you. Thank you.
That's it?
Anita, going forward, are we attempting to do 50% or do the justification above 50% since the guidelines say we're maxed at 50%?
We're
If there's not,
We're recommending that you adopt the full 100% fee based on the study and not do it incrementally and exceed the 50% and implement the 100% so that growth is actually paying its fair share of its demand on your systems.
I have a question. Why did, in this study on the water impact, I was looking at the water impact, the figure 2.7, fee comparisons from Lake County, Orange County. The city of Mineola was not included, and from my thought, they're our closest beside us with growth and expansion and water situations. They weren't included. We had Eustis to City of Apopka, Claremont, Groveland, but no Mineola. Was there?
There was no reason they were specifically left off. Again, this is a draft, so we can definitely, as we're finalizing the report,
You're the expert.
add that in. Yes.
Yeah, I was just kind of, they're right next door to us. We got Mineola.
I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we get,
There was no thought of what we didn't include. We just tried to pull out neighboring communities. So we
in the
just-
past, when we got challenged, we brought in the people that did the study, and they go to, against the other folks, the developer. And I'm sure you have practice at that.
Yes.
Any-
And again, we know you look at neighboring, it will still say unfortunately, your costs are your costs, just like running a facility is your costs are your costs, but you do want to see how you line up with. So what we also don't have in here is when the last time theirs were updated on the water, on the water side or any of those. Some may have been updated recently, some could have been in place for 10 years, some could have had, we don't know how they were funded, financed, obviously, if they were borrowed money, if they got grant money, that would lower their overall impact fee, but we can definitely add, if there's other communities you would like to see added to this.
If you think you can defend it without it, I don't see the reason. But you guys want it. We had the water impact fee in '07, I believe it was $4,500 from that day forward, right around there. And then in 17, we did the other 4 impact fees. And we had nothing before we put those in place. So it was pretty easy to do.
Yes.
And I remember that we sort of looked at what the other cities in the area had as far as impact fees and stayed under them, so we could argue them.
I have a question on the roads, the impacts for the roads, and I'm kind of not hung up on this, but I need a clarification. So our road impact fees are going to be based on County Road 455, which is county, and Ridgewood. Other than that, it's just interior. So if we need to impact our road feeds, we're pretty much cutting, we can't touch 455 or Ridgewood, correct? Everything is going to be county-based. So for any improvements on those 2 roads, that comes back to the county and yes or no on that. So if we base on road traffic studies and flows coming into those feeders, we're, we did a lot for nothing. I mean,
Well,
look
it's-
at it that way.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but now the road impact fees for every road, because they could use every road.
Right.
So,
We did include some costs for 455 in Ridgewood, because the council has talked about trying to work with the county for improvements, so that could be a funding source to incentivize the county to do some of those improvements we talked about, such as the mediums, things in that line, which obviously we got some grant money to do that now. Sidewalk extensions and things along 455 and Ridgewood.
Well, I was looking at that from strictly our discussion of impact fees from developers. They're not going to say, we're paying for 455 or, don't ask us to help on that, so.
No, we're just trying to maybe create some money to fix a few, for sidewalks, for instance, down Ridgewood. It's something the town's going to have to put in. The county's not going to put it in if we want sidewalks down Ridgewood.
Carol?
No, my 2 questions have been addressed. They're both legal, thank you.
All righty. Anything else?
Not from
No, I appreciate you coming and showing us your report.
I appreciate your time. and look
No,
forward to
thank you. I'll
working
see you on the
with
29th.
Yes.
Yep.
Mayor, if we could, because of the statutory requirement to have publicly noticed workshops, it's probably prudent to go ahead and accept public comment.
Okay,
If they
great.
have any questions relating to, specifically to the, not the actual impact fee, but the, I'm losing
Study?
my thought.
The
Yes.
demonstrated needs
Okay.
study.
The demonstrated needs.
Okay, well, I
study.
got the
Yes,
okay
thank
to
you.
open it up. So
Okay.
anybody want to talk?
Wait, if they have questions?
Quick question. Kelly Moore, 17029 Florence Field Drive, Magnolia Terrace. With the 5th council seat kind of in limbo, at some point when you're voting on major changes or the impact fee going up or whatnot, how does that work with the council? What if we had only 2 people here tonight? Would we be able to approve changing that in how this governing body works with the mayor and the council? Because we have, when this other seat gets filled, we don't have to have a set number of 5 to vote on things like this, or
So
how does
the
that work?
statutes vary in their language that they use. We have to have 3 council members to have a quorum, so we couldn't have a meeting with just 2.
Okay.
The statute for this provision says 2/3 of the governing body. At the present time, our governing body is made up of 4 people. We don't have the 5th seat. Now, maybe by the time the ordinance comes forward for consideration, we will have a 5th seat
All right, so
filled.
this is early in the process.
Correct.
Okay.
There's still time.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I don't think it's going to be relevant, but it's of the governing body, which is 5. That's what the statute says. I don't think it's going to be an issue, but please clarify that if you can.
I think we just are in disagreement.
Okay.
All right, anybody else? Come on up.
Good evening. Natalie Galligan, 17041 Florence View Drive, Montverde. A couple questions. Sorry we came in late. We were at another meeting, but can you tell me who you're with or how?
So my name is Tara Hollis. I'm a CPA and I'm also a certified valuation analyst. And I work for Wildan Financial Services. And we had some basic information in the beginning, but I've been doing all kinds of municipal work, water, sewer, general fund work for both utility systems and municipalities in the area and across the United States for the last 25 years.
We don't mention the word sewer here.
Everybody will want to talk. Just making sure I understand one of the numbers breakdown up there and what that would apply to. It said residential and multifamily with a cost of $14,000 whatever. And so is that for new developments when each house has to pay that amount to be built for the development? Am I understanding that correctly? On the developer, meaning if he builds 100 houses, it's $14,000 per household.
That's correct.
Right.
That's correct. Okay.
Right.
Is that are those definitions of? Are there other buildings or other for existing properties that are considered under those fees?
I'm not sure I follow.
Okay. So are there additional fees in the impact fees that for existing homes or whatever, say you wanted to put up a shed or a structure of some sort, will impact fees be applied to those existing structure or structures in existing homes?
Can you answer that, Anita?
Currently, the city's or the town's code provides for when an impact fee can be charged for existing homes. And, we'd have to pull the exact one and I can get with you after and show it to you. But it's generally when your impact is exceeding what your current impact is. So if you have 1,000 square foot house and you're tripling it, then there is an additional impact in the systems because of that increase. And so you may be required then to pay a portion of the impact fees.
Okay.
But generally, it is a one-time charge when a home or a new structure, commercial, is built.
Right. Okay. And so that's not part of this increase or, those are existing already fees for residential.
These will apply if they are adopted going forward for
any impact
for
fee.
any impact fee. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
Again, Kelly Moore, 17029 Florence View Drive, Magnolia Terrace. She brought up a good point, and I just came in with the same meeting she was at. What is our current rough thing? What is it, 10,000, 11,000 currently? I have no idea what our current impact fee for like the homes that were just built the last 3 years behind the park here that came in, and what were they paying? And now going forward, we're going up to the 14 or 15,000. I'm just trying to get a basis to say how much of an increase is this proposal over what we're currently charging builders to build now.
Or Willow Ridge.
So you mean like,
Yeah.
what do we charge?
Like
for-
Willow Ridge or the homes right behind us here that were went up?
Yeah, you're talking about like, what do we charge for roads and now what are we gonna charge?
No, per builder, per home, if they're building in now, before this goes forward, what's the current impact fee? Do we have
they're on-
one?
They're online, yeah. I don't know the top. off the top of my
Rough
head.
idea?
She mentioned it in her report and her testimony, and she also gave the percentage. I think she could probably give it to you
It's
again.
44% left, more.
I thought I had a table in here.
So I'm kind of hearing it's a 44% increase, roughly.
That's cost.
Okay, I'll let you speak, thank you.
Sorry, no. That is customer growth. That 44% was your customer, was your, well, that was actually the 44, I think, was the cost, the building cost. thought we had a table in here, and I know I have it in the model. I can include it in the presentation for next week.
Yeah, that'd be great, but if they need it, you can go online and see what our fees are.
Yes, yes. But I have a table, and I thought we put it in this
John
report,
probably
and I'm not
knows them
saying
off the top of his head.
Yeah, I think the water is close. I think the water is now like 5,600 and some change. The transportation and parks are probably the biggest increase. Is that correct? Transportation is currently only around 1,000.
yes.
So that's probably
Yeah, parks and transportation administration was the lowest. That was still slightly above the 50%, but it was the
Yeah, that's fine.
lowest
We
increase.
don't need it.
But I will put it in the
Okay.
presentation when we do this next
All
week.
right, thank you very much. Anybody else? Go ahead.
We had, you through showed commercial of 40,000 square feet. I'm curious where that is based on, because Montverde currently doesn't have a lot of orc area to develop into. And the other one was institutional, 151,000 square feet. And I was thinking, is the academy attempting or wanting to triple size or something? Just those two questions.
Sure. So commercial, we primarily looked at the existing lots that aren't developed downtown and what their potential could be, just a little quarter there, because we could definitely see that improving at some point in the future of what we got in that work area. And you know, I believe the Academy came at one time and said they may build a little theater type commercial, something there in the future that would be in that commercial section. Then the multifamily, we kind of looked at, you know, again, going back to Montverde Academy, they have a couple of fourplexes around their academy. It's possible they may come to council and ask that. And also our code does allow for apartment buildings in the ORC area and that special district area. So there could be a dozen apartments in theory put in there.
That's what I was kind of thinking with their public institution that would allow them to go that route, since they're under that zoning for public institution, that would give them the flexibility to do that. Other than that,
It depends on where they're at and what the use is. Then,
right.
then yeah, the academy, you kind of look at, you know, the last building they built by itself was 50,000 square foot. We know there's going to be a gym in the near future coming in. That may be a partial impact, possibly coming in. But yeah, you know, just 3 buildings at the academy in the next 10 years would drop into that.
They got a whole big field right there. I see. That's all going to be teacher housing, I bet, right there. My guess. All righty. I guess that's it. Thank you very much. We'll move on to our regular meeting.
And yeah,
I guess,
Mayor, if we could close and
sure.
adjourn this meeting and open up the next one, please.
The what? I'm sorry?
Can we just adjourn this meeting and so we can
Yeah,
open up
that's what I was
the-
just going to ask. We got to do the Pledge of Allegiance and all over again.
I'll second that.
Okay,
Make a motion to adjourn.
I got a motion to adjourn. Got a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against say nay. Okay, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance again. I pledge allegiance to the flag. All right, I guess a roll call, please. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Councilmember Morganelli,
Here.
Councilmember Hartle,
Still here, yes, here.
Vice Mayor Womack,
Present.
Mayor Wynkoop.
Here. Well, Alan, you got your chance for a prayer.
Will you join me for a moment of prayer? Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this time, for what we're able to accomplish tonight, and we hope going forward will continue. Father, there's special needs in our community. People are hurting that aren't spoken publicly. I wanted just to offer prayer up to those people who have special needs, special heavy hearts and concerns, family, extended family and close family. There's always things that you don't see and don't hear in our town. And we're a closed town. We want to lift those people up, let them know that we're there, and however we can support them, just a prayer, a thought, or an outreach. That's what we do when we're good at it. We thank you for that in thy name, amen.
Amen. All righty, let's move on, go to, you want to explain the return of the money, Paul?
Sure, Council, if our Finance Director, Maya, would come up, and I'm going to have her explain that to you.
Who's this?
Good evening, Council. So the ARPA money grant that we received was $5 million. And then our ARPA expenses, sewer evaluations and study was $1,697,692.22. And then we returned to the county $2.2 million. Total withdrawn from the account was $3,897,692.22. The remaining funds after the ARPA draw was $1,102,307.78. And then funds returned from DEP grant was $455,000. And then the final amount that we will return to the county will be $1,557,307.78.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All righty, so we've got to return $1.5 million back to the county. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I was just going to mention our Woodward and Kern team was able to work with DEP on the other $4 million grant that we had, and they were able to reimburse some of the reimbursable expenses that qualified. So that's that $455,000. Otherwise, we would be turning less that amount to the county. So that's a good thing for the county. We're able to turn as much as we can of that money. I will need a motion authorizing the town manager and mayor to sign the check and submit it into Lake County.
Lake County can't wait to get a hold of it.
Yes, they've been calling.
All right, everybody understand that? It's pretty easy, that one. All right, anybody want to discuss it? Okay, we need a motion to return that match back to the county.
I'll make the motion that we return to the county what we owe it.
Need a second?
Do we need a specific amount on that?
Go ahead, say this.
$1,557,307.78.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Can't say nay. Ayes have it. All righty, let's move on to the next wonderful subject. This is our 2025 budget. First review. There's many in this process, and please, if you have ideas, bring them to these meetings, because it's the only way, most likely the only way we'll be able to get it done. So go ahead and explain the budget,
Sure.
please.
So what's in your packet is this year's budget, and I just kind of wanted to go over a little bit of what's in this year's budget to kind of prep you for our budget discussions that'll be coming up. And the first couple pages are revenues, and I just did general budget in here. And just want to talk a little bit about general revenues. So we have a long list of where we get full page, probably 40 items there that we get revenues from. And as we do the budget, of all those items listed, there are very few that we have a lot of flexibility with of where they go. And I know, Ms. Morganelli, this is your first year of budget. Ms. Womack, this is your second year for budget. And so I just want to do just a little bit review and kind of get you prepped for what's coming. So as you look at those, some of them are self-explanatory. Permit fees have to stay in permit. Interlocal, that's what library has to stay in library. The gas tax has to stay for transportation needs and things along that line. The most flexible one we have in our general budget is our ad valorem taxes that we receive. That gives us some flexibility, but that also has to work for programming, staff, and certain things in certain areas. So just kind of want to put that in your mind, because I've had that asked before. Well, look, all this money, we can just do this. Well, a lot of it is restricted funds, which we talked about. We're going to go in only certain places. Likewise, on the water system, those are enterprise funds. So it's like its own little budget and its own little world, and we keep those funds in the water budget to take care of water needs in the future. So that's on that next page. Expenditures, and at the next meeting, it's going to be a very general discussion as I start to program fiscal year 2026 budget for you to review. And so the question's going to be is, what are some of your policy goals? What are some of the things you would like to see some money moved around in, or the extra funds we have? And I take those, then try to program them in and bring them back to you to take a look at. So, you know, for instance, in the past, getting our law enforcement built up to where we're at now, you know, that's been kind of a 3-year process that we've worked a little bit, and we've been adding 10% every year. So that would be a question. Do we still want to take, you know, 10% and increase that another 10%? We're only going to be guesstimating where revenues are, but that would be an example. So those are going to some of the things I would ask. You know, the sidewalks has this budget year, getting some sidewalks in was important to council. We talked about that. So that's just those little extra money things. Where do you want to go with that? I mean, Mr. Hartle brought up staff last year and pushed on that. I remember that came up, making sure we're competitive and we have enough staff to do the job that we need to do. So if you'll just kind of real quick flip to your expenditures, which shows page 1 of the expenditures. You know, as you look at talent, some of these are just, they're, I hate saying it, you kind of just follow along and fill in the blank. There's not much difference that happens in town council each and every year, so there's not too much to think about there. We just have to do some workman comp increases, put a little repair and maintenance, like to this facility goes in there. Finance administration, you get a little bit into salaries in that, and that includes the operation of the town hall. So that one does increase a little bit every year, because the busier we get, the more people come in, and you know, more photocopies have to be run, more mailings that have to go out, things along that line. Then also note, you'll see, you'll actually see when we get to the workshop, if you'll remember, salaries are spread out. You know, one person's salary could be in 5 or 6 different budget categories. Some will only be in 1 or 2. We kind of try to, every year we look at to see where's everybody working, you know, how have things changed. You know, for instance, we had our utility person and permitting was the same person a year ago, and so they were split between those 2 categories with a little bit in water, a little bit in permitting, and a little bit in finance. Well, now that person has moved pretty well full-time to permitting, so that whole salary ends up there. Then we have a full-time utility person, so that full salary goes to there. Public safety, that is a good one if, you know, to think about what you want to do for public safety moving forward. We're currently running about 30 hours a week on average with our highway patrol. You know, depends on what their needs are. Code compliance is one, doesn't require too much thought. Public works, so, you know, that's a big one for operation. We put in a building in there this last year. It's kind of those public work projects. Streets and roads, that's something I know the mayor's been pushing for the last couple of years, is that we make sure we fund their streets and kind of keep doing the maintenance on that. So that's come up in past budget years. So that's one where you have some flexibility. You know, we put streets and sidewalks in there. We put 160. So, you know, this year, for instance, we did the 3rd Street on the east side of Porter over there. We did the little section over here. And we're getting ready to do the sidewalk connections, the ADA connections for Mag Terrace, and also bringing a sidewalk from there to down the street so they can get on to, was that Lake Street up there? I'm thinking right, yeah. Library is kind of just programming for operations, and Park and Recs is another one where you could have some flexibility if you want some more programming in Parks and Recs, as far as, you know, we did the stage one here and there, things along that line. And utility and water is pretty self-explanatory, so I'll just kind of leave it at that. So those are the main ones you kind of want to think if we're where you want those funds to go. Obviously, we're going to have a very, very busy year next year with all the grant projects we have going. We have, gosh, what, Mayor, I already forgot, 40-something million that we need to spend in the next 18 months as a town to do some massive capital improvement projects. But those are all restricted funds. You just got to give the go-ahead and those get done, and, you know, that works through the engineer and things along that line. So I just wanted to kind of get your minds in the thought process. I'm going to have that conversation with you next Tuesday. What are some of your priorities where you want to start putting some of those funds?
Hey, Paul, I want to ask you a question, please.
Yes.
Going forward next year in our public, well, our funded $40 million review projects that we're working stormwater, how difficult would that be to bring to council or also put it out publicly? This project starts at 0% and we're currently tracking our grants with money, budget in, paid for, so forth. Is there any way to also be able to say, people will say, well, you know, I drove by, it looked like they haven't done anything there for 3 weeks. Well, of course, they're doing underground stuff that you don't physically, visibly see. Is there any kind of a way we could do a update for staff or for council and just general, hey, this project is dates between here and here is a completion for the contractor and they're at 40%, they're 50% of the work to be done. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I mean, we could track financially and project-wise. It depends on the detail you want. If you just want a general overview, staff report, that's easy for me to do. If you want something more complex with graphs and things along that line, then, you know, it does involve more staff time and we have to look at that.
Yeah, you always run into a lot of FUBARs that you didn't expect and we found that, didn't expect that, and oops, sidebar and the kind of stuff. But
sure.
Just a general, hey, we're doing really great, we're happy. I know when your hair turns gray, you're not happy, so we're just
no, it's all good.
So, little right-hand turn here to follow up on what Alan had mentioned. I was going to talk about it later on, but I had it discussed with Paul. I don't. Do you guys want me to?
Yeah, go ahead.
I had asked Paul actually to create an agenda item going forward for all of our monthly meetings for something called project updates. Sort of like what we track all of our financials for. I wanted to track all of our projects that would actually say this is the project name and then a brief description for him to go over very briefly and say that we're 30% done with this and here is the update, here's what's coming, things like that. I actually had sent over to him a sample of it as well for, at Mineola does it, and they do it at the end of their meetings, but they have a breakdown, and I'd gladly share this with you guys if you guys want to take a peek at it.
Yeah.
Take a peek at that. Again, it would be every regular meeting, but I think that would be a phenomenal way for us to keep up to that, keep up to date with all of the projects as well as our residents as well, to know where we're at. It would simplify some things for us.
Yeah, we kind of been doing that, I believe. When we asked them, like last meeting, we asked them for an update, I did, for an update on the water in Lake County. But he can go into detail about everything. How long would that take you to do, though?
How many open projects do you have right now? Ballpark.
7.
Yeah. Well, open projects, you mean projects under construction or projects we're in, because the planning's almost more work than the construction. So we have 3 active going on the water side of things. So we just got the bid documents put together for the water tower and the well. And in fact, we just sent that to you to review, surprising you. Then we're working on some of the water line extensions. I had a meeting on that today actually and went over all the water line extensions for the rest of the grant. We're working on the planning study for the stormwater project we have, so we've already started having kickoff meetings for that. We got the library project going on, the butterfly project going on. Lakeside, we got the signed contract done this week, and next week we have a teams meeting to get the notice to proceed with construction probably starting in May on that one. And
The road, 3rd and Porter.
yeah, we just finished 3rd and Porter and Porter and 1st Street. We had a meeting on that yesterday on the stormwater project that goes from 4th Street down to 1st Street on Porter, then 1st Street. We decided we're going to break that into 2 separate bids and get the street portion done while we figure out what to do with the hurricane. Kind of changed the scope of the project a little bit in there because the trees were wiped out. We got erosion issues going on there. So we'll probably have that ready to bid here in the next 45 days to go out to bid. So that's something that'll probably be active in July to August.
Is that, would you like to see something for every project
Yeah.
that's going
Yeah,
on?
'cause half
Or
of
limited at a
those-
dollar figure, or the
Basic
whole
information,
list?
but I think once that template was built, it shouldn't require a lot of time to do that, just because it'd be a simple update. I mean, some of those
That's what I'm
projects.
thinking.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
want to take up a lot of his
Yeah.
time, but at the same time, I think once that template is built, it's just a point of, he already knows all the projects, you're just going to update it for the meeting. And again, I'm literally, like what he just did right there would be fine, but something obviously in the minutes, that way residents, if they wanted to ever look back at that, we can just put it in the minutes as well. But just, I mean, some of those projects,
I would say
That was a lot of
if we
projects.
listed the project, I would know them verbally, that would be the easiest for me. Sometimes we're working so hard to get the council packets out. The project update may already be 2 weeks old, that's in the packet by the time I'm doing, because the week of council packets is never a good week for us. We have planning meetings. So if you guys are okay with a verbal, I mean, that's gonna add about 15 minutes plus your conversation times back and forth. Right now, what I've been doing is doing the updates when the meetings don't look like they're more than 2.5 hours. I always put that in for a filler. But there are a lot of projects going on, so I'll be glad to do whatever council would like to do.
I'm fine with a verbal. You guys,
I mean,
you okay with a verbal?
I'm fine with a verbal, but just out of curiosity, how do I ask the question? Given your current staff, would you consider taking on or do you need to take on a part-time person? With
For-
budget talks coming up, if there needs to be,
I'll have to look. The reality is, and we got a wonderful staff. Almost
top
over 50% of our staff is literally training for their new position, and that does take time to get them to the level you need to be. And sometimes new staff does add more work, so I would have to look at that versus, depends on what the level of experience you would want to do. I mean, that is something I'm going to look at. Public Works for sure is another area I'm kind of looking at if we need to add something on that end.
just exploring possibilities.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think it is something we may need to look at, and
Don't ever wave an employee in front of a manager.
I know.
I know, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna say yes when the vote comes. I'm just asking.
You kind of get to the point too where
You got 9 direct reports right now.
yeah, you kind of get to the point where you get too much staff, you almost need a manager to manage staff. And, we're almost getting
You're
to
getting
that
there.
point because I'm kind of taking on the project role more, and the planning role of that too, so it does take a lot of time to do that. But I'll look at that. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Just trying to compare times from you having to sit down and put together another report versus if you've got, holes to fill with somebody part-time on staff or whatever.
Yep.
Again, just trying to think forward.
Well, I want to thank Councilman Morgan Ellie for this little piece of paper here, because there's some information on here that,
like
towns don't get to brag about our bragging rights, but I think this little piece of paper that you got gives us some really bad bragging rights. Do y'all know how long Mineola has been working on a library?
The firehouse, too.
Yeah, they've been at it for quite a while, and this
3
little
years.
report here says, 3 years, thank you. It says insulation is being installed and sheet rock delivery is expected tomorrow. The project is on track for a September 1st.
They need to hire John.
2020, no, we're not.
And now you see
Well,
why
that's
they.
what I wanted to say. Paul, John?
Paul and
Pat
John
yourself
finished-
on the back. You deserve one for this, man.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
really.
They did that library in
says
a year.
lot. Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's why they put the report out, just so that you can see how.
So I'm fine with verbal,
Fast.
but I would like to see in the actual, the list of the projects. I mean, and again, that's just something that once you
But
make it,
I'll list the
copy-paste.
projects under my town manager report and just do it with my town manager
that-
report.
that
Then we'll
works.
just go down those projects. So that-
Yeah, but please,
That way I don't
even if you're
forget
not gonna
any.
do the update on any of them, I still wanna see that project. If you're not gonna do an update on the project, that it's on there, so that way, all you're doing is copying, pasting, it's not,
Sure.
that shouldn't be any extra work. You just
I would agree.
All right,
So that'd be fine.
thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep.
Where we at?
Any other questions on the budget? So again,
Yeah, I have
Tuesday, I'm
one
going to
other
ask about
actual-
your priorities and kind of things where you would like to see some emphasis in the budget. We don't know what those monies are. I try to work them in. Sometimes it takes 3 to 4 years to program stuff, and as you guys know, but we do our best to get it programmed in.
When, on the salary section, is that I briefly remember it from sitting out there and looking at it on the screen. Is it total, I mean, I know everything comes from different buckets, but do we also then see a total?
Yeah, so I will actually, when we get to actually looking at the budget, I'll have it all on Excel spreadsheet, and I'll show you the prior 2 years and what my proposals are for this year based off our discussions. Then I'll have each of the staff positions shown out there with the salary, the increase, the recommended increase, and also how it's broken out to each department, so you can take a look at that. So yeah, you'll have a very detailed view, plus I'll give you the benefit factor that we program into the spreadsheet as well.
Can you do the, under each department, the percentage of each person, because we have such a small place, each person that does part of that department's work? So like how much is split, how much you're split in water, in the public works, that kind of
Correct.
stuff, under each department, so they can kind of get a, an understanding. That would help, I think. That would help you, Joe, understand it better.
Yep. Yeah, I'll definitely do that. And this year, we've had in our prior budget, bring up that word sewer again, sorry, but, we do have the sewer enterprise, and we've had a partial staff position in that, and we've never, we're getting to the point now, we're reaching full sewer capacity at Pocket Sound with the lift station. It goes to Claremont, where we got full sewer capacity at, we're getting close to Willow Ridge. They're down to, I think, 18 permits left to go. So, by next budget year, we're pretty close to that. So we're actually able to see what that full budget looks like. Then the Hills of Montverde is going to kick in on their end. So actually, Tara, who was here, I'm going to have her do a quick rate analysis for me, because that's a small system, a small package plant. So it's obviously going to cost a lot more to run it, because it's just for 90 homes. And so we'll establish a fee for that, and that will create a new, kind of a budget where we'll probably have a staff position or public works staff position in that as well, plus our reserve setback. We want to make sure we're putting enough back to replace any issues in the future till we do something with those systems.
Alrighty. Okay, so everybody get ready for the budget conversation. How about the FEMA update?
I think you had a message.
Oh, I'm
back there,
sorry.
sir.
Oh, yes, come on up.
Brian Rubio, 16548. Two things. The items that the town manager just said, in regards to like the different, I guess, staff and, what percentage they're falling into what buckets, can that be posted online on the website for us, so we don't have to go ahead and do a public records request and then possibly have to even pay for the information? Is that something that we
For
could get
what?
access to?
For what now? I'm not.
So whatever the town manager is going to provide to the council members to see the different buckets and see the different staff salaries and all that, can
Yeah.
that be posted on the website?
Isn't everything posted that we get?
Yeah, we'll post the whole packet on the website.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's always
Yeah.
posted.
Yeah, but
On
the
the bottom.
breakdowns though.
No, it should be there too if we have it.
It'll be there.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not currently, it will be there though.
Well, it's not currently, because I haven't done it yet.
Okay.
We haven't done the 2026 budget yet. So,
Okay.
so when we get the 2026 budget, it'll be posted with the council packet.
Yeah, we've asked that everything we get is right in it. You just click on it and it's right there.
Yeah, but I can't
Unless
see the
there's an
sub
update.
accounts for, so each like category in the expenditures, like you can't see like the sub accounts, it just says, I don't know, car allowance, but you can't see, well, what's the breakdown of that car allowance for that exact, department or category. So it's as limited as, I guess what I'm trying to say.
Well, look at it and bring forward where you can't see. 'Cause
Okay.
I thought you could see it all.
Yeah,
No,
I'll
like-
make sure when the 2026 is presented to council that all the pages are included, so that you can see everything. So whatever the council get in the packet, you'll have.
Okay, and then for
so-
future needs, the next part is for future needs. The town has a bunch of projects going on, right? And you're hiring staff based on that current need. But what about the future need once these projects start, completing themselves and, now you're gonna have a surplus in staff, right?
No, I don't really think we're gonna need a town manager that month after that.
So,
Okay.
So, with that being said, would it be wise, I guess, to add to the budget, I guess, a section for project managers to, handle specific projects, not to obviously have the town manager handle like 10 different projects and it's all on him? Why can't we just hire project managers to do this one thing or this one thing? And then that way,
Yeah, we could talk about it.
it's temporary, because once the project is done, then that pay for that project manager is done instead of.
Well, I can
getting
tell
all
you
this
to
extra
build this
stuff.
library, if we didn't have our own employee doing it, it would have cost us 250,000 more. That's what a project manager makes.
Yeah.
Am I right or am I low? What would you,
But it's not a forever thing. It's for a year, 2 years, 3 years, or whatever the project is gonna take.
well, it's like,
versus-
It's a little more complicated because we
Yeah.
do have to hire it as an employee because of, we're part of the Florida retirement system. So, you know, all the benefits have to kick in, insurance. So it's hard to just jump on and off an employee, I guess, you know, based on projects.
it's not
but-
like a regular company doing, but they would do that.
Okay.
That would be easier. I wish we could do that, but I know what you're saying, but it
But,
doesn't.
really, I mean, and I understand what you're saying, if we need some assistance with the project, but I would also look at what other assistance we need in other areas as well, because, you know, we are gonna have the new houses coming in, and I was just talking with the manager, just so you guys know, at Howie in the Hills, and we got 10 full-time here. They're a little bit smaller than us, they have 15 full-time and an assistant manager.
So they need a new manager.
There you go.
What are you saying? You
So,
keep- that's
but
the
you know,
second time.
you know, we wanna do it incremental to make sure the need is there and the training is there as the town grows. So I don't wanna just hire people hoping we're gonna have money to do them. I wanna do it as we get those funds to come in.
The project managers are a lot more expensive than an employee.
Yeah.
They're not little expenses.
Yeah, but again, there's a, you know, short-term thing versus hiring a bunch of people and then not needing them later on, and you have to lay them off, and, you know,
Well, we can look at it.
yeah. Anyways, it's just something food for thought, you know, it's again, dialogue, discussion, you know, it's
Yeah.
just something, you know, that I just wanted to bring up, that's all.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is the rest of the projects themselves are gonna be a little less intensive than,
Oh, yeah.
what John and I have to do on the library, because we self-bid everything, so all these projects are gonna be bid out. The engineers are actually coming to be partial project managers, so they'll be out, once a week, depending on what the needs are, to look and survey. It'll be a little bit more demand on Public Works to help with utilities and locates and those kind of things. So my busy side is on the front end and the close end of the project, so we're amount of checks going out the door, putting the bids out, Anita's gotta come in, and our staff, we have to do, the ranking of the bids to get those ready to present to you. So, really the projects, it's the paperwork that's the headache, of all these things moving forward, because they're, you know, federal bid projects. So it's the library, you know, we're picking colors, we're doing this, trying to find the landscaping and get that. That's not gonna be the case on these projects. Everything's gonna be in the scope of the bid, so it's just gonna be more of a check and follow up on them. So that's the good news. The bad news, the front end and the back end and the closeout's a lot tougher. And for instance, our first time, the town's never had it before, we hit the single audit threshold. So we had an audit of the town books, then we had an audit of just the grants that were federal funded grants, all of them, and everything from the policy procedures to the amounts. So we had 2 complete audits this year, so that was that was a lot of extra work this year, and Sandy as well, because they had to dig all those out, and Patty as well, so, and they did a great job, I think, getting that. So I was a little stressed last week, but she did a great job. So,
And it was expensive.
and it's 2 audits.
Yeah, okay. How about a FEMA update?
And it's Sandy Johnson, who's been working on the FEMA.
FEMA, my
Glad to
favorite
see you.
subject.
Sad to see you on that side of the mic.
We have 2 requests in right now for FEMA. One of them is for a generator at the water plant, a new generator. And we've asked, they're awarding us $145,042. It's a 75-25 split. And if we do the project, once we do it, they will reimburse us another $7,200 for management cost, which is me. And then the other one is hurricane.
And real quick on that, council, from beginning to end, I'm gonna give kudos. That entire FEMA for the generator was Sandy. from the meetings to the paperwork to the filing to the organization of that. So good job and kudos for getting
Thank
the
you.
town $145,000.
That's a tough process.
Oh,
It is.
We've been doing it for over a year.
Yep. Yep. And then the other one we have is Milton, Hurricane Milton, the request for all the reimbursement for all the debris removal, some of the damages. And it's, right now, the total amount is $236,785. That doesn't include Truscott Park. I'm still working with them on Truscott. Our insurance declined redoing the walkway.
It wasn't a
So
hurricane.
FEMA, yeah.
Hmm?
They said it wasn't a hurricane. It was wind.
Mhm. It's pretty testy. Anyway, but FEMA's gonna come in and give me an estimate on what they'll replace it for, and according to the people that I've talked to, they're usually on the high side, which is great. So, anyways, that's it.
No,
And that just, it's only been 9 months since Milton. Ian, it took me 22 months to get reimbursed for $56,000, so.
Getting better at it.
I am. They haven't written me a check yet. That's the big thing. So, that's it.
Great work, thank you.
Thank you.
And
Oh.
we did, just one last thing on FEMA in the park over there. So as you know, the fence got hurt on the front and the back. And so we're replacing that whole fence and putting a little bit of concrete for the fence to go in between Mr. Lay's house just to keep the erosion and the park area. So that amount she gave you, I believe the fence is going to be about another $43,000 or so to get the fence up and around that. And so we're going to go ahead and get that installed. So that'll be coming also to you in a budget amendment coming
And
forward.
we're gonna do the property lines on the back.
Correct,
part,
yes,
okay.
yeah, we'll get those marked and do it right down the property line and
Mm,
get that cleaned
do
up.
Alrighty, I guess we can move on to resolution 2025-172, if you would, please.
A resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Montverde, Florida, increasing the residential and commercial solid waste fees resulting from increases charged by the service provider to the town, providing for conflict severability and an effective date.
This is our favorite garbage company, Waste Pro, and I see the representatives here. Want to come up and tell us why you need this raise?
Hello again, council, staff. We're here back for our annual request for CPI. I'm Platt Loftus, Waitsboro, Florida. I believe we met recently, and good to see you all again. Mike Conley, our division manager. How long have you been with us here in Lake County now?
About a year now, a little less than a year.
That's a
So-
record.
I've been in the business for 35 years though, so. I've
Wow.
been around the block
Could you get a
now.
little closer and pull the mic up so we can get it on the
Yes,
record?
so I've been in the business about 35 years, so I've been around the block a little bit. Your town is priority for us. I mean, I will make sure that you will get great service. I watch you every time a truck runs over here, so.
Good. So anyhow, we're here for request for CPI. The CPI request, I believe, is for 2.95%, which is just year over year. It's in the contract. This isn't an arbitrary ask. This is a contractual request, if you will. And the raise that we're asking for is, I believe, 78 cents from the rate is currently $26.61 per home per month, and what we're requesting is $27.39, which is right at 78 cents per home, or 2.5 cents per day. So, with that, I'll turn it back over to the mayor and the council, and do y'all have any questions, any issues, anything you'd like to discuss while we're here?
You know you hear them as soon as I hear them. I'm sure Paul does the same.
So,
Go ahead.
I got a question. So basically, comes out to $9.36 for the year. I had talked to you, and Paul actually had given me this afternoon. Did you give to the rest of the council as well? No. All right.
No.
So $4.53 a month is what recycling is costing.
Correct, I believe that's the number.
Yeah. Which comes out to $54.36 for the year. The concern for me is that we're not really recycling. Many residents have seen where the recycling can is going with the trash. Like last week, for example, you guys weren't there on Monday, and then I think Tuesday, for at least for me over on Highland here, you guys had picked up both cans at the same time and in the same truck.
Yeah, we can address that. That was a hiccup that we had in service. That's not a consistent situation. We had a driver.
Well, I mean, the recycling's in bins, so it's not in the cans. So, and it's supposed to be picked up on Wednesday.
Right.
So it shouldn't even be out on that Monday for it to be picked up.
I'm getting my days a little.
Yeah, so
It was the next day.
Monday, Thursday are your garbage days, Wednesdays your recycling days. So I don't know, there shouldn't be it shouldn't be out together, for one.
Correct. Yeah, it wasn't picked up so that, you know, my kids are the ones that bring the
So-
cans in, to be honest. So
I
they
think
left it
this
out
Monday,
there.
we left it, I think our truck packed out because the yard waste was so heavy out here that they packed out twice and wasn't able to make it back, so they had to come back Tuesday to finish. So even Tuesday, our recycling day is on Wednesdays. So it shouldn't even be out on Tuesday. And plus, it's not a can, it's a bin. And they do that on Wednesdays.
Okay. I guess or if, again, I'm not proposing this, I'm just, if we discussed it, would we be able to remove recycling from that contract if it was something that council wanted to do?
We can negotiate anything that the town agrees to do.
Right.
We're not beholden to, well, we are beholden to the contract, but we can always amend. I'll speak closer in here. Yes, we can do whatever the town likes to do. If there's any amendment that the town would like to, we can negotiate things.
We'd like a $5 off.
Yeah, I mean, if,
So like $25 off. You're gonna ask, that's big.
well, again, we need to sit down with Mr. Loreno, and we're also possibly looking at providing carts, branded carts with the 100-year celebration. There's a number of things that Mr. Loreno and I are looking at, but yes, if recycling is to be taken out of the recycle stream and put into the solid waste stream, I would imagine there would be a removal of the recycling rate. But again, it's going to be transition to solid waste, so that's something we need to take a look at from a performance standpoint.
I would think a lot of people would be upset.
Well, I'm not saying we do. I'm actually, what I'd like to do is I'd rather hear from residents.
Well-
Like, I'd rather have some time for residents to chime in on that.
And just to give you an idea of what's happening locally, the city of Winter Garden they did away with recycling. The city of Deltona, over 30,000 homes, they did away with recycling 5 years ago. Putnam County just did away with recycling last year. Clay County just did away with recycling 3 years ago, and it goes on and on. What's happening is the cost of processing recyclables is just skyrocketing, and a lot of municipalities, and I mean a lot of municipalities, are just simply doing away with it from a financial standpoint.
So saying that, I mean, it costs us to dispose of the trash, it's $29 a ton, a little over 29. For recycling, it's $125 a ton to dispose of recycling that we pay for.
When he means dispose, he means take it to a
Like,
processing.
yeah, if you take it costs us to dump it $125 a ton compared to 29. So it would help us out really if we just dumped it as trash. I mean, because that's like 300% increase that costs us to dump recycling. You know what I mean? And it probably, most of that probably goes to the trash anyway, you know, after it goes to the recycle center.
Would it be possible to substitute the recycle for yard waste pickup?
Say that again, please?
Yeah, like, instead of doing recycle, make Wednesday yard waste day. Which would help us out in the garbage, because sometimes yard waste gets heavy, and that's why we don't finish the garbage, because we're picking up the yard waste with the garbage. And it's like this time of year we call March Madness, because that's when all the yard waste is out. And it's very heavy, and sometimes they get overwhelmed and don't finish the garbage because of the yard waste. So that would help us out a lot. And another thing would help us out if we like pick up, if we don't do that, if we pick up yard waste on one day and bulk the other day, instead of picking everything up both days, which we do now, separate it out. So we wouldn't get overwhelmed.
Thank you.
Yep. And we do gotta be careful if we get too many days going, then that's more trucks on the
No, no,
streets,
I'm not
deteriorating
looking-
streets, so we gotta be
yeah.
careful with that
I
too.
don't think either one of us are
No.
pitching an
No,
additional day. Yeah.
she was saying, take the recycling out and make it a yard waste day, so it'd be the same amount of trucks.
Yeah.
How about all the hydraulics that leak on our roads and eat our blacktop?
We haven't had a hydraulic leak in Montverde for, I don't remember last time we had one. Maybe last year, before I got here.
You got some drippy trucks going now.
Huh?
You have some drippy trucks now.
No, it's the same truck coming every day. It's 13059.
No, but they're not pouring it out anymore. They're leaking it.
Yeah, we're kinda there's some drip rips going, so.
All right, just let me know and I will get on to it. It's the same truck every day.
Yeah, it's
You know
not
what I mean?
really to come out and clean it. It's just that it eats the blacktop and causes
Yeah,
problems.
hydraulic is terrible.
I'll send you pictures when I see it. It's my fault I haven't sent them to you.
Yes, sir. Please do that, because we'll get it fixed. We don't,
It's my fault right now. I agree.
And Joe, maybe, Mayor, we can maybe follow the truck with you
Mhm.
and see where this is happening.
And you need to know something's going on. So,
yes, sir.
Would there be a difference of cost if we did the yard waste on that day?
I don't know how we'd have to negotiate that, if we put yard waste instead of recycling.
Since we just run a pro forma with whatever's requested, and then we get back with the town manager, and then we go back and forth.
And cost is based on the number of runs the truck makes, or the number of trucks making runs, not necessarily on what's put in the truck, correct?
Yeah, it's more or less how many homes it is, whether we bypass it or not, and we would know how many, we had to figure out how many tons it was, and just, it's just like a calculation. Same way we got the recycling number out of it, we would just run it the opposite way and put the number for yard waste into it, you know what I mean? Same way you got the $4.50, it would just be the opposite way.
I just got people sending me pictures of hydraulic.
You did?
You gotta love the internet.
What street?
Wait a minute, they just texted me what street. Wait a minute.
They're probably watching now. Give them 30 seconds, another text will come through.
That's fine. I mean,
9th Street.
9th Street, there you go.
I need to know that stuff so I can make sure that our trucks are not leaking, because that was a priority for me when I got there, because our trucks were leaking everywhere. So I make sure that, we don't paint the streets. I don't want to paint the streets. It costs me money. It don't look good. So, you come to my parking lot, you could see my trucks don't leak. There might be a spot here and there, but my parking lot where my trucks park are
That's
not.
because they're empty by the time they
The hydraulic fluid is never empty. The only way it's empty if it goes on the ground.
Mayor, we'll get on that.
Okay.
Mayor and council, real quick, just so you know, with the helps of Caroline's help today or in the last couple of days, City of Oakland, our neighbor, just recently did a RFP, and I believe it was from June to July, so I have some recent numbers so you can compare to make sure you're getting the value for our citizens. So our price is $27.39, and that's for 2 trash pickups and 1 recycling. On the RFP that came back, coastal waste and recycling for the same service was $29.29. FCC Environmental Services, is that the green truck? Yeah. Okay, they were $43.11. Waste Management Incorporated of Florida was $41.89, and Waste Pro was $28.95 for the same service. So we're still about $1 cheaper, over $1 cheaper than what Oakland got by putting this out to bid. Oakland decided to go with another option where they switched down to 1 trash service per week and 1 recycle per week plus the big bulk stuff, and they went with a rate of $23.64 for that, to give you some background. So we're competitively priced with our contracting, so because I know some, should we put this out to bid, and bids take a lot of time, energy, and luckily we have this brand new bid here, so we can see what the cost would be if we did put it out to bid.
I don't think the raise is unreasonable, what they're asking for. But we just got to give them the information about problems that we have.
Absolutely. And we want that feedback. It's the only way
You
we get
guys
better.
agree? You guys agree?
I'd
What's
like-
it, 70 cents or
Yeah, but
something?
I'd still would like to hear from residents as far as recycling or yard waste.
Oh, yeah,
on the
yeah,
decision before-
to go forward, yeah.
I
But
mean,
just for this
for-
process
yeah,
right
for this
here.
problem.
And absolutely, moving forward, let's continue the discussion if the town so desires.
Yeah. Is that good?
Yeah, I'm good. Like I said, yeah, that was my concern, was just that
All right.
we listen to our
You
residents.
guys, any more questions? Anybody want to talk to your garbage men? Come on up.
And as they're coming up, as a side note, Platt here is going to be cooking all of our burgers and hot dogs for the 100-year centennial celebration next. Yes, you are. So on May 3rd is our centennial celebration, so.
You're gonna come?
Yeah, we're bringing a big smoker out here. We're gonna
Yeah.
cook hammers and hot dogs for you guys.
So-
Okay, question for you. Kelly Moore, 17029 Florence View Drive, Montford, Magnolia Terrace. Of the recycle, my wife takes out every cup, every bottle, every little thing, all day long, just to get it out of the kitchen. And she's really happy to do that. What I'm hearing is 75% of what does get processed on Wednesday ends up in a landfill anyways. Is there a way that the town, on the website, could put out a survey and ask the residents, are you happy having recycling picked up, knowing this is what per ton is going out, and be factual about it? Because some of us feel like, hey, we're doing this because we're gonna save the world or whatever. But, for every 4 bottles, one of them's gonna be recycled, the other 3 are going to the trash, and then we're paying triple to do that. At some point, if some people understand that, they may say, let's just do a Monday and Thursday trash pickup, and if we have some yard waste, it goes in there. Now, there could be a day where there's logs or some hurricane or something, that's different. But just the typical yard waste should be included Monday, Thursday, 2 pickups, and then we could save some money. Now, if the town and the residents say, we really want to recycle, we know we're throwing away 3/4 of it, and they're okay with that, and they want to pay, then so be it. But I don't like this idea when I leave here, and the chatter online is, well, you guys pick it up, and it just goes to the trash anyways. So it makes my home feel like, oh my God, why are we recycling in the first place? It's a waste of everybody's time.
So let me talk about that. So most of that recycling that gets thrown away like that is collected in the bins, in the big carts that we can't see into, and it's dumped in the truck before we know what's in it. What we pick up in your town is bins where they physically pick them up and see what's in the bin. We can start leaving that stuff, and then if we take good, clean recycling to the recycle center, all that'll get recycled. Is just the problem that when they put it into the carts with all these other towns, it's already in the truck before we know what's in the cart. That's why most of that stuff gets thrown away, because they put plastic bags in there.
So let me differentiate that. So if the end of my driveway, it's clear, I can see it, and it's full.
Right.
Now, everybody, 130 residents in Mag Terrace, we all just did it perfect. How much of that is being mixed in with something else that you have no idea?
No, it's total recycle. We take it there, and it's going to be dumped to the recycle. And if it's clean recycle, it'll be recycled. The only time it gets thrown away is when we bring in, if it's like 50% garbage, and it gets thrown away.
When would that? How would someone put 50% garbage in the recycle bin? I'm losing you.
Not in the bin, but in the carts.
Oh, the big carts?
Yeah. So the numbers you're getting is from other towns that use the carts.
Okay, no. So if we stick with the separate bins,
Right.
it is getting recycled.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
I just want to make sure that's clear.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you so much.
Yes.
Mark? Brian?
Brian Rubio, 16548. Question for you guys. How many tons is the garbage truck? Like, how many tons does it weigh? Like, just roughly. I don't need exact.
So it's like 45,000 empty. It's between like 38 and 42 empty. And when it's loaded, about 60. And that's totally loaded, like 13 tons of trash.
Okay. And then for the 13 tons of trash, like, if you just had to throw an amount of houses, like single-family residential homes, like, just if you were to just throw a number at it, how many would?
That varies. It depends what type of material you're picking up. You start putting couches and beds, and that just takes up space. If it's straight garbage, probably 700, 800 homes, 900 homes, straight trash.
All All right, no, that's it, that's all I had.
All right, well, you guys, anyone talk about their little raise they want?
Thank you for acknowledging a little raise.
I guess one question, a follow-up question, and how do we want to address the recycling aspect, or how do we want to do that? I don't want to just like.
I'm okay with the way it is, because I know a lot of people do it correctly, and they do recycle the bins, but they don't recycle what's in the big containers. What are they, 60-gallon containers? They're
Yeah,
big.
like in the county, they got 95-gallon.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, 95-gallon carts, just like in garbage. So they have one garbage cart, one recycle cart.
He calls the big one a cart.
Right, so I have like a.
So a toter,
Yeah.
a nice gallon
Looks
toter.
like your garbage can.
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
a big blue bin that.
Right.
that my
So
kids would
so
love.
in the county, they have one of them for garbage, one for recycle, and 95% of the time, you don't know what's in that cart until you
Right.
watch it dump in your
I got
truck.
it in Leesburg, some probably
Yeah,
have
I mean, we have
Leesburg.
cameras to watch, but
Yeah.
it's already in your truck. You know what I mean? So it's too
And
late.
it's
They
only
put-
one guy with the
Right,
one
and
arm
we
thing.
don't allow them to go back up in there and get the stuff
But
out.
if they put it in the bin, it's going to
It's
the
all getting
recyclable.
Yeah, because you can see what's in that bin, and
But that's what we do, we put it, ours are the bin, right?
Right, Correct. yes.
So if people do what they're supposed to, it goes to recycling.
Yes.
Correct.
And there's plenty of people out there to do that, I can tell you.
Yeah, it's bingo.
Is the stuff at the recycle center actually getting recycled at the recycle center? Because it used to ship it off to China, obviously. Is it actually getting, the bottles are getting rebottled or whatever they do?
I just visited the recycle center on Monday, and they do. They bundle up the plastic, they bundle up the cardboard.
They do it by hand.
No, they
I
got
don't know if you've
bundlers.
seen
They
it.
got bailers, man. But yeah, they do. I mean, I don't know where it goes to, but I seen bunches of bundles of plastic and
Yeah.
and cardboard and everything there.
It's being transported to a MRF, a recycling facility.
And just to be clear, no food items whatsoever, not.
Correct.
even-
That's
not
the main
boxes,
contaminant, that and
right.
plastic
No.
bags.
Plastic bags are the main contaminant.
Plastic bags such as
Like
garbage
trash
bags
bags.
or.
Yeah.
trash
Mainly,
bags?
mainly Publix, the food bags need to go back to the point of origination.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
any plastic bag. So
And-
because reason why they don't want that in there because they put that stuff on the conveyor belt. What happens to that plastic bag? It wraps around the rollers. So now they got to shut the whole line down. So
But yeah, it's mainly food waste and plastic bags that contaminate recycling.
Soda cans, tin cans
Yep,
should be rinsed
good.
out. Or, you know,
They don't have to be perfect. There's like a 10% de minimis rule, but yeah.
Okay.
like
no
pe-
pizza boxes.
no pizza boxes.
You know, because of the grease. A lot of people don't know that.
Takeout containers, no styrofoam.
Correct, no
No
styrofoam.
styrofoam.
Hey,
Absolutely.
Okay, so
hey,
we're
Platt,
gonna
can
need
you
a
guys,
motion.
can you guys send us an update flyer of how you would like to
Absolutely.
see in the recycle, and we'll get that out there?
I don't think it's changed. but
Absolutely. I'll get that to you.
So say,
Small.
say that those three do perfect job, they recycle everything, and I happen to just, whatever, I don't care, and I throw just junk into it. You guys are gonna obviously.
it's gonna stay in your curb.
Well,
Yeah,
but it's,
you don't
I
pick
have
it
it,
up.
I have it in a bin though, so you guys would probably.
It's gonna stay in your curb though.
They won't pick it up.
We won't pick it up.
You
We'll
know,
put a
you
tag
can't
on and
s-
say.
We've probably been picking it up, but we shouldn't pick it
Your
up.
recycle is in a cart? with
Yeah, I have
lids
it,
and a
it has a
lid?
lid on it and everything.
Oh, you've
yeah.
got a cart for
Okay.
recycling.
Then
You need to go back to
then-
the bins because if you need bins,
Yeah.
I can bring bins to you.
Well, they all get torn up in my, for some reason, I don't know. But where I'm going with this, hold on, bear with me. So again, assume those three do it, perfectly, I do it bad, for example. Now, when my bad stuff gets added to their good stuff, does it now, because I remember I think you had mentioned last year that it contaminates their three,
Correct.
which offsets the whole process anyway.
It can, but it takes many, many, many homes to contaminate a load.
It's percentages.
Just one house isn't going to contaminate a load.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Don't do it.
We'll work on you, Joe.
Just don't do it.
Come on up, you wanna speak?
Oh, sure.
Hi, Kelly Moore again from 17029 Florence Field Drive, Magnolia Terrace. Do we know what Groveland, Mineola, Claremont, Ashtabula, anyone around us, how many of them are still doing recycling and how many are not? Are they all doing recycling on
I don't
Wednesday or?
How would that matter though?
Wednesday, but they
Well,
are doing
you know, if I'm finding that more than the majority of our surrounding similar-sized communities are not paying the 129 versus the 28 per
Well,
ton, then why are we still doing it, sort of thing? That's all I'm just trying to say. What are other places in the same doing?
Well,
You know?
we pay that price. It's already put in your price, whether we pay $125 a ton or $85 a ton.
So wouldn't it say what's to take Wednesday out?
$4.53 a month.
Because of the truck running and paying the guys to do it and all that. You know what I mean? Salaries,
They're
truck,
saying,
fuel.
they're saying that a lot of places aren't doing recycling anymore. Everything goes into big two bins.
I guess, are you seeing that anywhere in your cities?
They're saying they don't have the
I think
little
everybody
bins.
around here recycles. Mineola recycles, the county recycles.
Everyone's recycling. I did a real quick survey of Lake County. Ashtabula has an interesting scenario. They're doing every other week recycling. Instead of doing it every week, they're doing it every other week. The town of Umatilla, I looked on their website, all they mentioned was solid waste and yard waste. There was no mention of recycling, which makes me wonder. I don't know. I can't speak for them.
But you started the conversation earlier by saying all the cities that weren't doing it, right?
90% of cities are, but there are many cities that are not. And some of them are very large municipalities and counties even.
So the city uses, we just bid on that contract, and they're recycling, but they're taking it to the incinerator and burning it, which is, they consider that recycling because you're making energy out of recycle. So.
Splitting hairs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm good.
Okay. Okay, I make a motion that we approve the increase.
Thank you, Council and Mayor. Thank you.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against, say nay. Ayes have it.
So y'all,
Okay, so now we're getting steaks, not hamburgers.
Jeez. Let's get out of here.
Hey, I tried to invite you guys to steak dinner a couple months
Steaks
ago.
on the picnic thing.
Yeah, they're making me provide the meat. I mean.
We'll invite you guys for steaks next time we have a cookout.
No. All righty, great job, thank you. Anybody last before we go? Anybody want to say anything?
I have one more thing.
Oh, go ahead.
So one of the topics I wanted to bring up for the May meeting was, I had discussed this with Paul a little bit, which was for a Willow Ridge discussion. I obviously, as you know, had my meet and greet. There were a lot of concerns that they had. I think it would be beneficial to us as a council to have a brief 15-minute segue into a discussion with some of the residents that want to come in and they have questions to ask us.
Bring them on. This is open every single time for anybody.
I sort of wanted to have it as like an agenda item, because that way there is a dedicated
Yeah, they
time.
can do
I think
that.
it'd be more
Yeah, we
legislative
could do
for
that,
us.
but they got to show up. You know.
Definitely.
How many
Correct.
people here from Willow Ridge?
I don't think any
There
are
you
here from
go.
Willow Ridge right now, but I know they'll be here.
Yeah.
They'll be here.
Yeah,
So
haven't
I
been.
would ask, I would assume that would take about a half hour probably to do that.
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
It would just be a
50.
question for council, do you want to do it at the next meeting, because we do have CRA, the impact fee
Oh,
again, and other
yeah,
things,
no,
or do
good
you want to
point.
do it
Yeah.
at
No,
a
not that
workshop,
meeting.
special meeting or something?
Yeah, that meeting's overwhelmed.
That's my only concern. I
When's
just
that?
want to make sure we have time to give them.
When's the next meeting after that? Well, we can figure it out and we'll put it on the agenda.
I mean, again, I don't want to.
I'll schedule it
Yeah,
with
we
the
can
mayor.
figure it out.
I mean, if we have 30 minutes, we have 30 minutes.
Yeah, and we can do
I
it.
would rather hear them out at the meeting.
I don't want to do it next meeting, but we can do it a meeting or two after that.
Why not have it at the next meeting? I'm going to ask. Because, I mean,
There's too many topics, and just from my own experience, there's too many big topics to talk about and want to stay focused on them. These are important ones.
I think we do have possibly 3 meetings in May again.
Yeah,
So
so
we'll be
fit
able
it
to
in there.
schedule one with them.
okay, I will need a heads up before those, so I can let people, obviously, I want to let the people that have reached out to me know so that we can make sure they're
That's,
here,
yeah,
obviously.
we'll let you know. We'll let all the
All right.
council know,
Thank
and
you.
I'll let the HOA folks know. So then, with that said, I'll just say we'll go over that in the meeting when we go over that. Some of those, I know some of the questions Mr. Morganelli brought have to do with the PUD. It's possible that PUD could come back, so we've got quasi-judicial issues, so we'll have to kind of vet the topics, because there may be some things you guys can't comment on as council, just because it probably could come before you again too, so.
With the Willow Ridge?
With Willow Ridge,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's true.
So we gotta be just a little bit careful.
Yeah,
Thank
you gotta make sure they understand that. There's stuff we just can't talk about.
Correct, I got you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay, we'll get it on the schedule. Thank you,
Thanks.
council.
All righty. Anybody else?
Yep.
Oh,
This Saturday, butterfly, plant them in the ground, green side up, brown side down. So Paul will be hollering that. Hope to see as many of you there as possible online and bring the garden club from Montverde. That's what we need.
Yeah, so May 3rd, guys, we really need help. If you can't make it, if you can, that'd be great. If you could pass it on to your neighbors, May 3rd at 9 o'clock. I'm hoping to get 40 people out there at the Butterfly Garden. Bring your shovel, and we can maybe get the whole thing in 2 hours. We'll have everything laid out. You just need to show up, and we'll be able to tell you right where to go. So 9 o'clock, I said May 3rd, I'm sorry. 9 o'clock this Saturday. So please come join that. And May 3rd is our centennial celebration at the park at 11.
it's 55,000 plants, right?
I feel like there is. Kathy and I ran to the store, it feels like that many times.
All righty. Anybody else?
Make a motion, we
Motion.
adjourn?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
See you later.
And council, if you guys can just hang tight for 5 minutes, Caroline's gonna come up and put stuff in your packets for the next meeting, which is next Tuesday. Just leave it right there, and she's gonna walk by right now and pop it in your packets, and your packets will be ready for Tuesday.